Hey guys, welcome to the Bitcoin Fortress podcast, helping you increase your financial freedom. This is episode 163, recorded here on April 20th, 2025. This podcast is for entertainment only and is not investing advice, so please do your own homework. This is Easter Sunday, so for those of you celebrating, happy Easter. We are at block 893,272, Moscow time 1183. Fees are 2, 2, and 2. We'll get started with the market news update and outlook. Take a look at the weekly top Bitcoin news, and then check out this week's featured post on Bitcoin Fortress Substack, and then also a quick look ahead at upcoming articles, and then we'll wrap it up. Jumping into the market news, Wall Street on Thursday posted a loss for the holiday shortened week, with traders experiencing more of the volatile topsy-turvy trading that has become the norm recently. Stock markets were shut on Good Friday. The benchmark S&P 500 index has now notched 7 negative weeks out of 9 as tariff developments continue to sour sentiment. After several, sometimes confusing adjustments and clarifications to tariff policy last week, things were quieter on that front over the past few days. Instead, US President Donald Trump and other officials made public remarks about positive trade negotiations with multiple countries except China. The US and China's trade war continued to heat up after chipmakers Nvidia and AMD disclosed anticipated charges due to US export controls on some of their products to the Asian nation. The updates, along with a weak quarterly bookings performance by Dutch chip giant ASML, led to a tech rout and contributed to the majority of the week's overall market losses. A hawkish Federal Reserve chair also played his part. Jerome Powell at the Economic Club of Chicago expressed concerns about the likely higher than anticipated effects from tariffs, including possibly putting pressure on the central bank's dual mandate of stable prices and strong employment. Trump later criticized him for not lowering interest rates and has been said to be mulling over whether to remove Powell. For the week, the S&P 500 retreated 1.5%, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq Composite slid 2.6%. The blue chip Dow fell 2.7%. Wall Street will gear up for the first quarter earnings season next week, with hundreds of major firms on deck. Traders will also get a fairly busy economic calendar, and tariff developments will continue to be squarely in focus. In terms of reporting companies, Tesla and Google parent Alphabet will be headliners. There are several other household names scheduled to announce their numbers, including Verizon, Boeing, Intel, IBM, P&G, and 3M. Turning to economic data, flash PMIs will garner attention, and so will existing home sales, jobless claims, and a final reading on consumer sentiment. Additionally, the Fed's Beige Book on U.S. economic activity will be released. All right, jumping into the Bitcoin news, we'll start with the Hodler's Digest for 413 through 19 from Cointelegraph.com. We'll skip over the shitcoinery. So this first one here is about mantra tokens. Don't care. Oregon Attorney General Dan Rayfield is planning a lawsuit against crypto exchange Coinbase, alleging the company is selling unregistered securities to residents of the U.S. state after the United States Security Exchange Commission dropped its federal case against the exchange. According to Coinbase's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, the lawsuit is an exact copycat case of SEC's 2023 lawsuit against the exchange, which the federal agency agreed to drop in February. Grewal added, "In case you think I'm jumping to conclusions, the Attorney General's office made it clear to us that they are literally picking up where the Gary Gensler SEC left off. Seriously, this is exactly the opposite of what Americans should be focused on right now." Trump token holders face 90% decline from peak as unlock begins. And all I can say is, ha ha, don't buy shitcoins. Crypto rug pulls have slowed but are now more devastating, according to DApp Radar. There's been a 66% year on year decrease in the number of crypto rug pulls this year compared to 2024, but recent data shows that the size of each rug pull has been increasing. Well, don't shitcoin. Simple. Former FTX CEO Sam SBF Bankman-Fried has moved from a transit facility to a California prison that once housed infamous gangster Al Capone. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons website, officials moved Bankman-Fried from the Federal Transfer Center in Oklahoma City briefly to the Federal Correctional Institution in Victorville before transferring him to a facility in Terminal Island in Los Angeles, California. The federal institution was once home to criminals like former Theranos chief operating officer Ramesh Balwani and Capone, who was convicted of tax evasion in 1931. Let's see if there's anything else here. Prediction of the week. Altcoins don't care. Hacker mints $5 million in ZK tokens after compromising ZK Sync admin account. Sounds like a shitcoin. This one's worth looking at. Only 20 of the 181 Bitcoin service providers registered with El Salvador's central bank are operational, with the rest failing to meet the country's requirements under its Bitcoin law. Local media outlet El Mundo cited data from the Central Reserve Bank of El Salvador showing that 11% of the service providers are operational. According to the central bank's database, the rest of the providers are classified as non-operational. The data showed that at least 22 non-operational providers have failed to meet most of the country's Bitcoin law requirements, which mandate that providers implement stringent supervision of their financial systems. And that wraps up the Hodler's Digest. So moving on, let's take a look at Good Morning Bitcoin from No BS Bitcoin. This is the last one that they published last week, Thursday, April 17th. And here are the headlines. OpenSats announces the 11th wave of Nostr grants. The 5 projects in the wave are the mobile live streaming app Sway, the Nostr over ham radio project Hamster, love that name. Vertex, a web of trust service for Nostr developers. Nostr Double Ratchet for end-to-end encrypted messaging. And the Nostr game engine for building games and applications integrated with the Nostr ecosystem. Project 11 offers 1 Bitcoin to break Bitcoin's cryptography with a quantum computer. The Quantum Computing Research Organization has introduced the Q-Day Prize, a global challenge that offers 1 Bitcoin to the first team capable of breaking an elliptic curve cryptographic or ECC key using Shor's algorithm on a quantum computer. The prize will be awarded to the first team to successfully accomplish this breakthrough by April 5th, 2026. Bull Bitcoin expands to Mexico, enabling anyone in the country to receive pesos from anywhere in the world straight from a Bitcoin wallet. Additionally, users can now buy Bitcoin with a Mexican bank account. Bull Bitcoin strongly believes in Bitcoin's economic potential in Mexico, not only for international remittances and tourism, but also for Mexican individuals and companies to reclaim their financial sovereignty and protect their wealth from inflation and the fragility of traditional financial markets, said Francis Fulio, founder and CEO of Bull Bitcoin. Panama City votes to accept Bitcoin for municipal services. The Panama City Council has voted to accept Bitcoin and other digital currencies for municipal services, becoming the first public institution in the country to do so. They will partner with an authorized bank responsible for converting the digital currency proceeds into dollars, reports Bitcoin Magazine. U.S. Bitcoin miner manufacturer Aradine has raised $153 million in a Series C funding round as it expands into AI infrastructure. The round was led by Stepstone Group and included participation from Maverick Silicon, Premji Invest, Samsung Catalyst Fund, Qualcomm Ventures, Mayfield, Mara Holdings, GS Backers, and other existing investors. The firm raised over $300 million since its inception in 2022. Designathon 2025, the Bitcoin, I should say Designathon. What am I saying? The Bitcoin design community is organizing a Bitcoin design hackathon scheduled to take place from May 4th to 18th, 2025. Sign up and learn more about the event, prizes, and ideas. And there's a link here in the article. And again, I'll put all these articles in the show notes so you can take a look at them for yourself. Next up from Bitcoin.com news, Peter Schiff, every bank will fail as recession ignites full-scale depression. Economist and gold advocate Peter Schiff issued a dire warning on April 18th during an interview on the Schwab network, cautioning that U.S. economic policies are setting the stage for a catastrophic downturn. Blaming tariffs implemented under President Donald Trump's administration, Schiff stated, the recession that Trump inherited is already much worse and is going to get much worse as a result of these misguided tariffs. He argued that unless the tariffs are removed and the administration backs down, the situation will spiral into a historically severe downturn. This is going to be the worst recession since the Great Depression. It may be worse than the Great Depression. It depends on the mistakes that we make during this recession. It'll certainly be worse than 2008, 2009, the Great Recession, and it's probably going to include a financial crisis that will be worse than the 2008 financial crisis, the economists added. Schiff dismissed recent employment data as a sign of economic strength, arguing the labor gains were misleading, claimed all jobs created last year were part-time positions filled by individuals who could no longer meet expenses with a single job. The Gold Advocate added that many Americans are relying on multiple jobs and maxed out credit cards not to enhance their lifestyles, but to make ends meet. According to Schiff, tariffs will worsen inflation by increasing the price of imported goods, leading to a collapse in retail spending. There's going to be massive layoffs, bankruptcies in the retail sector, a lot of defaults. He cited continued capital flight from U.S. financial assets as a major concern, saying it is driving up interest rates and combined with rising prices could lead to an inflationary recession. Schiff warned of a broader impact, noting the U.S. economy's reliance on imports and the risk of collapse without them. The economist said previous monetary policy pushed inflation abroad while preserving domestic asset prices, but that trend is reversing. As inflation moves from Wall Street to Main Street, he said it will affect both low and high income groups. Commenting on Trump's policies, Schiff stressed, he's doing it even worse than I thought he would, predicting a sharp drop in the dollar if the Federal Reserve resumes quantitative easing. The Gold Advocate explained. It's going to be an even bigger decline, but for the dollar, the worst thing that can happen is the Fed steps in and goes back to QE to bail out the economy, to bail out the bond market, to stop this coming financial crisis, he cautioned. If the Fed does that, the dollar is going to implode, so it could drop another 20 to 30% very quickly. Schiff further warned, our entire banking system is insolvent. Every single bank in this country will fail if we have a recession with rising interest rates. That's exactly what we're going to have. So, scary prediction. Um, I think he makes a lot of good points. Of course, his solution is gold, although I just listened to another video of him on Kitco, and he was touting gold stocks over gold, which is interesting because if the stock market crashes, it brings everything down with it. And of course, he was, lambasting Bitcoin as always, which we'll never hear the end of that. But sound money is where you want to be, I think, in this environment. So sure, gold, but I would I'm banking on Bitcoin myself. So Next up, this is from Bitcoin Magazine. Binance advising multiple governments on strategic Bitcoin reserve. Financial Times reports that Bitcoin and crypto exchange Binance is advising several countries on creating their own Bitcoin and crypto regulations and establishing national strategic Bitcoin reserves. Binance CEO Richard Tang revealed that multiple governments seek the exchange's guidance on establishing strategic Bitcoin reserves and crafting digital asset policies following recent U.S. moves toward creating a national Bitcoin stockpile. We have actually received quite a number of approaches by a few governments and sovereign wealth funds on the establishment of their own crypto reserves, Tang said in an interview with the Financial Times. While declining to name specific countries, he noted that the United States is way ahead in developing strategic Bitcoin frameworks. The development comes as nations worldwide reassess their approach to Bitcoin following former U.S. President Donald Trump's executive order to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve using confiscated assets from criminal and civil proceedings. Tang, who assumed leadership of Binance after founder Changpeng Zhao stepped down, said that many countries have approached Binance to help them with formulating their regulatory framework to govern crypto. The exchange's advisory role significantly evolves its relationship with regulators. Previously known for its no headquarters approach, Binance is considering establishing a global base as it takes on a more formal role in shaping national Bitcoin and crypto policies. Countries like Pakistan and Kyrgyzstan have already partnered with Binance on crypto regulation, though neither has officially announced plans for Bitcoin reserves. The exchange's expanding influence in policy formation reflects the growing acceptance of Bitcoin as a potential strategic asset by sovereign entities. Market observers note this development could signal a broader shift in how governments view Bitcoin and crypto. The advisory initiative comes as Binance works to reshape its image following recent regulatory challenges. The exchange has strengthened its compliance frameworks and proactively engaged with regulators worldwide. The trend toward national Bitcoin reserves could significantly affect the Bitcoin's global adoption and price stability. As more countries consider holding Bitcoin as a strategic asset, the market may see reduced volatility and increased institutional participation. Binance's role in advising governments marks a new chapter in the Bitcoin and crypto industry's maturation as these assets increasingly become part of national strategic planning. The development suggests a potential shift in how countries approach monetary sovereignty in the digital age. Although for right now, they all love gold, all the central banks. All right. Next up from crypto news, Charles Schwab targets April 2026 for launch of spot Bitcoin trading services. Charles Schwab Corp is preparing to enter the spot Bitcoin trading market, with CEO Rick Wurster indicating a potential launch as early as April 2026. Speaking to Wurster highlighted a 400% surge in traffic to Schwab's crypto-related web pages as clear evidence of investor interest in digital assets. Our expectation is that with the changing regulatory environment, we are hopeful and likely to be able to launch direct spot crypto, he said. Our goal is to do that in the next 12 months, and we are on a great path to be able to do that. New Schwab CEO signals strong commitment to expanding crypto services. Wurster, who took over as CEO in 2025, has consistently expressed interest in expanding Schwab's digital asset offerings. In a November 2024 interview, he noted that the firm was eager to offer direct crypto services but was awaiting clearer regulatory guidance before moving forward. Following Donald Trump's reelection in late 2024, Wurster cited optimism that the new administration would create a more favorable regulatory landscape for digital assets. The shift could finally enable Schwab to roll out direct trading services long requested by its client base. In January 2025, Schwab deepened its crypto push by partnering with Trump Media and Technology Group to support the launch of Truth.fi, a platform combining traditional financial services with cryptocurrency offerings. Charles Schwab CEO said, "I have not bought crypto, and now I feel silly." The initiative claims to present an alternative to legacy banking, catering to users concerned about financial censorship and data privacy. TMTG CEO and White House advisor Devin Nunes described Truth.fi as a solution for Americans worried about debanking, censorship, and privacy violations by mainstream tech and financial institutions. While Worcester has admitted he personally does not own any crypto, saying he felt silly for not investing earlier, his leadership signals Schwab's intent to play a larger role in the evolving digital finance ecosystem. Publicly traded companies increasing their Bitcoin holdings by 16.1% in the first quarter of 2025 signaled continued institutional interest in the leading cryptocurrency despite market volatility. According to crypto asset manager Bitwise, total corporate Bitcoin holdings climbed to approximately 688,000 Bitcoin by the end of Q1, with companies adding 95,431 Bitcoin over the 3-month period. Bitwise reported the combined value of these holdings reached $56.7 billion based on a Q1 closing price of $82,445 per Bitcoin, representing a 2.2% increase in value. The number of public companies with Bitcoin on their balance sheets also rose from 67 to 79, with 12 firms making their first Bitcoin purchases during the quarter. The adoption of Bitcoin has found momentum statewide in the US. According to data from Bitcoin Law, 47 Bitcoin reserve bills have been introduced across 26 states, with 41 currently active. Last week, Arizona's Digital Assets Reserve Bill, SB 1373, passed the House Committee of the Whole and now awaits one final vote before heading to Governor Katie Hobbs for approval. Or maybe she'll veto it. You never know with those politicians. All right, next up from Cointelegraph, Lyn Alden lowers Bitcoin forecast after tariff kerfluffle, eyes liquidity. Macroeconomist Lyn Alden expects Bitcoin to finish 2025 higher than its current price of around $85,000, though she says it would have been much higher if not for US President Donald Trump's tariff announcement in February. "Before all this tariff kerfluffle, I would have had a higher price target," Alden told Natalie Brunell on the April 17th episode of Coin Stories. "My guess is that we end up higher in the end of the year than we are now, at least," she added. However, she said that a massive liquidity unlock could be the catalyst needed for Bitcoin to reach more optimistic targets, similar to those before the tariffs were introduced. For example, if the US bond market broke and the US Federal Reserve had to step in with measures like yield curve control or heavy quantitative easing, Alden explained. While Alden said there is a good chance Bitcoin reclaims the $100,000 price level before the end of the year, she emphasized that broader financial market down days will remain a challenge for the asset, especially since Bitcoin trades 24/7, unlike traditional stock markets with trading hours. Because it trades 24/7, if people are worried about how things are going to open on Monday, some pools of capital can sell their Bitcoin on a Sunday and prepare, she said. Alden explained that crypto's round-the-clock trading contributes to its volatile pricing, particularly when traditional financial markets are freaking out. At the time of publication, Bitcoin is trading at 84,950, according to CoinMarketCap data. However, Alden said Bitcoin can disconnect from the NASDAQ 100, especially in situations that hurt NASDAQ margins without affecting global liquidity. As an example, she pointed to a potential repeat of the 5 years leading up to the 2008 global financial crisis, which she believes could be favorable for Bitcoin. She pointed to the 2003-2007 period where there was a weaker US dollar cycle, and while there wasn't a mass exodus of capital, it did flow into emerging markets, commodities, gold, and other assets, with US stocks not really being the place to be. And a quote, she says, "If we encounter a 5-year period like that again, that could be a period where Bitcoin does pretty well, even as the US stock market doesn't do particularly well. Alden wrote in a September research report that Bitcoin moves in the direction of global M2 83% of the time in a given 12-month period. The research termed Bitcoin a global liquidity barometer, compared Bitcoin to other major asset classes such as SPX, gold, and VT, and Bitcoin topped the correlation index concerning global liquidity. And finally, this article from CoinDesk: Bitcoin eyes 139,000 by year end amid macro resilience and on chain strength, according to 21 shares. Bitcoin could reach $138,555. Wow, that's a very precise estimate by the end of 2025, according to a new 21 shares analysis of historical trends and current market signals that shows the world's largest cryptocurrency gaining strength from macroeconomic uncertainty and on-chain momentum. The current market cycle resembles 2021, when a major shock, in that case China's mining ban, triggered a reset without upending the long-term bullish trend, according to the report. This time around, disillusionment with macro policy and rising global liquidity seem to be playing a similar role. Price action shows resilience, not fear, with Bitcoin now trading around 84,400, up from 83,152 earlier this month. What's different now is how Bitcoin responds to shocks. Market-wide collapses like Silicon Valley Bank's failure no longer spark panic selling. Instead, these types of shocks increasingly reinforce the crypto's role as a hedge against traditional finance risk, 21 shares argued. In countries like Argentina and Turkey, where inflation and currency devaluation persist, Bitcoin adoption continues to grow. Notably, recent crypto native failures like the Bybit hack haven't shaken investor faith in Bitcoin itself. Unlike earlier cycles, the market now seems able to separate failures of centralized actors from the decentralized protocol's value. On-chain indicators, including accumulation trends and the behavior of long-term holders, suggest that Bitcoin is in a consolidation phase rather than approaching a top. Meanwhile, growing inflows from spot ETFs, improving regulatory clarity, and the asset's integration with traditional finance are adding fuel to the current rally. Though there's still a chance of a pullback, possibly down to the 200-day moving average near 77,000. The broader setup points toward continued growth. The projection of 138,555 would mark a 64% increase from current levels. So, a little hopium there to end our news articles. Finally, let's check out this week's featured post on Bitcoin Fortress Substack: Getting a Bitcoin backed loan in California, my experience and what I learned. And I'll put a link to that in the show notes. Kind of interesting experience I had recently. Needed to borrow against the Bitcoin because I didn't want to sell and pay the tax man. But I guess eventually we'll have to pay that loan back. And a quick look ahead at upcoming Bitcoin Fortress articles in the queue. Coming up here on Monday, we have scheduled The Matrix, Bitcoiners, and the Power of Memes. So that's a pretty fun one. Then we go into, on Wednesday, it'll be Finding Meaning and Purpose. On Friday, an anniversary celebration, 1 year of Bitcoin Fortress. Kind of a big deal. And the following week, we have Bitcoin and global liquidity, kind of a deep dive on that. Why do so few people understand how money works and fail to recognize it's broken? And then we have the echoes of empire. So check that out. And if you like it, please subscribe. It's free. And with that, I will thank you for listening to the podcast this week. If you enjoyed the show, please like and leave a comment. Also, don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss an episode. You can follow my Substack at bitcoinfortress.substack.com. And you can follow me on Nostr. My MPub is in the show notes. And with that, I will talk to y'all next week. Bye bye.